Okay, hi everyone. So today we are looking at academic IELTS writing task 1. So I have a question for you. We're going to go through it and we're going to look at how to analyze the question. Well, basically, I'm going to get you to attempt it and then I'm going to give you feedback on your attempt. So that is what we're doing, academic IELTS writing task 1. But like I was saying, mainly what we're doing today is I'll show you a question, get you to attempt some tasks, and I'll give you feedback on those tasks. But if you're not already familiar with how to write a task 1 essay, then you can follow these guides here. So I've just pasted those. I've just shared those links in the comments. So click on those, make your way through those lessons if you're not already comfortable with what to do in task 1. Hey Sharafat, good to see you here. Doing very well. Thanks for asking. Hope you're doing well too. Yep, so that's it. I'm just basically giving you feedback on your task 1. I'm using some new software today, so it might be a little bit finicky at times. So please bear with me. But essentially what we're looking at first of all is how to analyze the question. So let me just pull up the question for you here. In case you cannot see clearly, the labels are Model A, Model B, Model C, Model D, and Model E, both on the left and the right. Okay, so that's my first question for you. How do we analyze this question? Hey, Gring, welcome to the lesson. Good to see you here. Excuse me. So if you are not familiar with how to analyze the question, you basically have two options. You can analyze according to the highest and lowest, or you can analyze according to the increases and decreases. Hey Naomi, how are you feeling about your upcoming test? And just in case it's not clear, this lesson is for academic IELTS. So if you are doing general training IELTS, this will not help you. Hey Ina, doing good, thanks. Hi Mela, welcome to the lesson. Doing good, Gring. Thanks for asking. Okay, so what do we think? Highest or lowest? Highest and lowest, or increases and decreases? Best of luck, Naomi. Hi, Ifat. All right, so it seems like those of you who are present aren't very familiar with this. Basically, the fact that there are 2 years, we have 2018 and 2015, that is the information that allows us to decide how we're going to analyze this question. So fluctuating trends would be more a description of the fact that they change. But when we talk about a fluctuation, it's more like on a line graph where there would be many ups and downs. So that term fluctuate wouldn't be suitable for what we're looking at here. Okay, guys. So there are only two options. What do you think? Increases and decreases, or highest and lowest values? And honestly, this is this is both basic and essential. So if you're struggling with this, I have to say this guide is something that you really badly need to complete. This is it, what's essential. What's essential for a good task achievement score is an overview. And if you're not able to write an overview, you're not getting higher than band 5. And I know most of the students who come to me for help are looking for 7 and higher. So there's no way you're going to get that score if you're not able to answer this first question. Is really, really important. You can do this. Decreasing trend mostly. So that's more a description, not. So I'm not asking you to analyze it. I'm asking you more how to analyze it. How the number of calls changed. Yes, but is it an increase and decrease, or highest and lowest? What are we looking for? Highest and lowest. Okay, so Sharafat, thanks for attempting it. Let me just explain to you how it will work. So because we have 2 years, here, we talk about the increases and decreases. So anytime there is just one time period, so like if we were to imagine that we weren't given this, if we were only had this 1 year, 2010, then we would look for the highest and the lowest figures. But when you're given more than 1 year or more than one time frame, it wouldn't necessarily be more than 1 year. It might be 2 or 3 days, it might be 2 or 3 months. But when the scenario is more than one time period, we're looking for highest and lowest. Excuse me, that was completely wrong. We're looking for increases and decreases when there's more than 1 year. Okay, so next what I want you to do is I want you to write the paraphrase for me. So the paraphrase is simply this. We take the text here and we rewrite that in our own words. So that's what I want you to do for me. Write the paraphrase, share it with me in the comments, and I will give you feedback on your paraphrase. And remember, the most important thing is that your paraphrase has the same meaning as the question statement. That is the most important part of the paraphrase. Okay, and it's strict. The bar chart, good, illustrates how many Nigerian call center received a phone call. So you've got that the wrong way around. So it's going to be how many phone calls a Nigerian call center received in relation to different car models they made. Yes, I think you should still put in the word company, because the way the question is phrased, it sounds like they have several call centers, and this information is specifically about the Nigerian call center. So just add in that information about, a company's Nigerian call center would make it clear. And Mela, the bar graphs illustrate the amount of calls attained by a company at a call center. So it's their call center. So a company's, I'd go apostrophe S, a company's call center in Nigeria in 2010, 2015 relates to the production of 5 different car models. So it's not about the production of the car models, it's about the cars. It's about the car models. So it's not about, if you're saying about the production, you're talking about how they're made or how quickly they can be made. So the calls weren't about the production, it was about the car models that the company makes. So that information isn't accurate. Ranjana, the given chart depicts the number of calls received by, so the collocation received by the Nigerian branch, the Nigerian call center branch, no, the Nigerian, just go with call center. You're making that a bit confusing. Of a particular company regarding the different car models they manufactured. It says produce in the question is present simple, so we'll say produce as well. Manufacture in present simple as well in your paraphrase. That's a relatively good paraphrase though, Ranjana. Sharfat, we can see there are 2 bar charts. No. So when you're paraphrasing the question, all you want to do, you just want to take what it says here. So literally what it says here, and just say that. Don't say anything else. Don't add anything extra. Don't change it. And even in fact, if we go back to Amila's, where Amila included 2010 and 2015, because the question statement didn't say that, I'd advise you not to include that information either. Sharfat, so just when you're paraphrasing, just take the question statement. Don't take anything else. Hi, Rupinder. Good to see you here. Kring, the bar chart illustrates, you need an S, how many calls a company facilitates in their Nigerian call center. If the word facilitate doesn't work here, in attention with, no, it's just say in relation to various car models they produce in the year 2008. So the way you've said it, it sounds like they're producing the cars in 2010 and 2015, but it's when they got the phone calls is what they're referring to. Okay, so let me just quickly grab Ranjana's and I'll paste that in here. Okay, so I think this is the most accurate one we had. Okay. Sorry, I was saying this is a new piece of software, so I'm not 100% familiar with this right now. Just try and get it lined up. Give me a moment. Okay. Okay, the given chart depicts the number of calls received by Nigerian branch, the Nigerian call center of a particular, let's say, car manufacturer. According to different car models they produce. Okay. That's our paraphrase. That's a suitable paraphrase there. From there, of course, we need to write the overview. So that's my next task for you right now. I want you to write the overview. And again, share that with me in the comments and I'll be able to give you feedback on that. Rupinder, the given chart illustrates the number of calls received by a company at their call center in Nigeria in 2010, 2015. So remove the bit about 2010 and 2015. It's not wrong, but when you're paraphrasing the question, I want the main focus to be the question statement, not the other information you're getting from the chart. So remove that and put in that it was in connection with the various car models they produce. So it's divided up according to which car model the phone calls were in relation to, and you haven't included that bit. Hey, Big B, the bar graph indicates how many calls a Nigerian call center of a company received. Stick with what it says. Change relate to in relation to the different kinds, plural, of car models they produce. And then you need a full stop. Hey, Jashan, welcome to the lesson. Okay, so we're on to writing the overview. So like I said, write the overview, share it with me in the comments, and I will have some feedback for you on your attempt. Okay, so while you are all writing the overview, let me just share some other materials with you here. If you're already familiar with me and Complete Test Success, you'll know about my free live feedback lessons on Zoom every week. So if you've not already signed up for those, click on the link, sign up, and you'll have more feedback from me there every week. Also, I have one-on-one feedback, one-on-one support. I have courses, they're all one-on-one, and you'll find all of those with the same link there. So whether you're looking for group classes or one-on-one support, click on that link and you'll find all that there. Okay, Ranjana has the overview written. So let's have a look at this. You know what? Before I look at Ranjana's, let me show you what I'm looking for. Let me show you what I want based on this question. All right, so we said earlier on, we're looking for increases and decreases. So we went from 52 to 49, so that's a decrease. We went from 33 to 24, that's a decrease. 71 to 84, that's an increase. 94 to 88, another decrease. 68 to 57, another decrease. Okay, so essentially what we have is they all decreased except model C. Okay, so that's the main part, but that's quite, what you kind of have to be careful with then is you don't want to have a very brief or skimpy overview. You know, you want to have enough detail that it's going to get you a high score. So just one sentence covers what we have here. So when I look at this, go, okay, the number of calls received for every model decreased except for model C. Okay, so I've said everything in relation to the increases and decrease quite briefly. So what I would draw attention to after that is the fact that model D has the highest number of calls in 2015. It had 88. And it also had the highest number of calls in 2010. So just to avoid having a very brief overview, I would include that information as well. I would include the fact that Model D had the highest number of calls, or accounted for the highest number of calls in both years. So that's what I would include in my overview. All right, so after that, let's have a look at Ranjana's. Overall, when compared to the figures of 2010, comma, the total number of inquiries received about Model A, B, and Model E decreased in 2015, whereas calls regarding Model C and Model D increased. Wrong, because Model D went from 94 to 88, and essentially, Ranjana, what you've done there is you've limited your task achievement score to quite a low, like 5. So that one mistake is enough to cost you. That's pretty much, that could essentially be the end of your IELTS test. That one mistake you've made could essentially mean you're not getting the IELTS score you need and you need to go and do the test again. That's how important the overview is. You have to get it right. And that's why I always encourage students to make notes, make annotations. If you're doing paper-based test, draw on the question sheet like I did on my screen. If you're doing the computer-based test, have a little piece of note paper, make some notes about which ones increased and decreased. So you just write down like letters A, B, C, D, E, and arrows going up and down next to the letters A, B, C, D, E. So you don't have to draw the whole graph, but make little annotations, because when you try to analyze it in your head, you're trying to remember which ones increased, which ones decreased. There's too much going on compared to when you just draw the way I have here, and then you can look at it all in one go and you go, okay, yeah, which arrows go up, which arrows go down. So you're putting a lot less pressure on yourself to analyze it correctly when you make little annotations and draw like that. Yep, so that'll be fine. That sentence, that's accurate, but obviously a big mistake with D, and a very significant mistake for your score there, Ranjana. Rupinder, overall, it is evident that in both years, Model D received the highest number of calls, and only Model C witnessed an increase in the given time. It's accurate, but I would describe the part about Model C more clearly. So it'd be, and Model C was the only one that had an increase. No, because then you're not saying was the only one which had an increase in the number of calls received. There, yeah, that'd be fine. So describe Model C in more detail, but that is a good overview. Just language-wise, it could be more descriptive. Okay, Naomi, overall, the calls inquiry concerning car models decreased. However, the opposite for Model C was true. So the language here isn't clear enough, Naomi. The calls received concerning all, the word all is going to be very important, concerning all car models decreased except for, use except for is much clearer, because you've already said, when you say however doesn't exclude the first part of the sentence. So the word however isn't appropriate. The word except is what you need here. Hey, Chrissy. No, not too late at all. So we're just finishing up with the overviews and we're going to move on to the body paragraphs in a moment. Okay, Anitris. Oh, I'm sorry. I know I really badly can't say your name, so I'm not going to attempt. Overall, the Model D received the highest number of inquiries in the year 2010 and in the years, plural, 2010 and 2015. However, Model C showed a slight increase in calls amongst all models. That's not clear. So your language ability is holding you back here. You're going to have to work on your both your vocab and your grammar, because the mistakes you're making are so significant. It's breaking down communication. Showed a slight increase in calls among all models. Model C was the only model which showed an increase in the number of calls. And then you've already said that because you said it's the only one that showed an increase, you don't need to say anything about the other ones. You don't need to mention them by name because you've already discussed them in that first sentence. Hey, Maravik, good to see you here. Big B, overall, between 2010 and 2000, and okay, so you think this is a small mistake, but you wrote 1015 instead of 2015. That can seriously hurt your score. You have to be very accurate because you're discussing graphs. Okay, I see your correction here, but that is very important. There was, not there were, there was a decrease in the amount of calls in relation to all kinds of cars except for Model C, MODEL. In addition, Model D received the most. Model C, so the Nigerian call center received the calls. Model D accounted for the most calls in both years. Let's just say that. Okay. Overall, all the models had a decreasing trend except for Model C, where the reverse was true. Okay. Quick question, Lar. Do all African countries write the same exam paper? Yeah. Yeah. But the answer is yes, but the question I have is, why are you asking that? Because you obviously must, the fact that you're asking that, I feel you must have some particular reason why you think that's important to you. So can you tell me why? I don't mind you asking, but I am concerned that you're on the wrong track if you think that's an important question to ask. So could you just tell me why you're asking that? It really won't affect the way you do your test. So that's why I'm asking why you're asking, because I think you might need some more advice. Norula, hello to you. Good to see you here again. Okay, so based on those, I'm going to take Rupinder's. Overview and add it to what we already have with Ranjana's paraphrase from earlier on. Okay. So overall, it is evident that in both years, Model D received the highest number of calls and Model C was the only model which an increase in the number of calls. In the number of calls. Okay, so overall, it is evident that in both years, Model D received the highest. Okay, accounted for. So again, it was the Nigerian call center that received them. So they accounted for means that they were responsible for. Accounted for. Model D accounted for the highest number of calls, and Model C was given. Model C was the only model which witnessed an increase in the number of calls. Okay, so that is our paraphrase and our overview complete. So of course, from there, we need to write the first body paragraph. But before we do that, can you tell me how will we organize the details paragraphs? How are we going to organize that? How are we going to organize them? What are we going to put in the first details paragraph? What are we going to put in the second details paragraph? Kring, overall, you need a comma. Overall, comma. It is evident that in the year 2015, the amount of calls received decreased for both for models A, B, D, and E, unlike so just go straight to the model because you've mentioned A, B, C, and A, B, D, and E, unlike model C, which had an increase in the number of calls that it accounted for. And then use a new sentence to talk about model D being the highest in both. Just keep them separate. That makes it clearer. Hey, Jervin, good to see you here. According to the year 2010 and 2015. No, because according to is, the word according doesn't work like that. To say according to is to say what someone else told you. So that doesn't work there. Okay. So I think you're back to one of the earlier questions there, Naomi. Overall, so you need a capital letter O for the overall there, Sad. Overall, the number of calls received for each car model decreased in the year 2015 compared to 2010, except for, say, the name of the car seems to be Model C, so just go with that, except for Model C, which increased in 2015. Okay, good. Model D received the most calls for both years. That's a good overview. Some small language mistakes, but the content is there and it's accurate. That is a good overview. Yeah, because I only see IELTS writing tasks for India and UAE post on Facebook. I don't know if the info is correct, so I just want to know how we as Africans are scored. You're scored in the exact same way. But what do you mean IELTS writing tasks? Do you mean people posting the questions, like students who did the test going and posting the questions that they had in a Facebook group? Is it? So like, for example, if I do the IELTS test today and I come home and I type the question that I did into the Facebook group, is that what you mean? Hey, Benny. So that's it. Well, I mean, those questions aren't the problem with that is generally students won't post the question accurately, or like if a candidate does a test, they'll generally post it with mistakes or not the exact same wording, and it can often cause confusion. You're better off to use a reliable source. And then the other thing is, are you thinking that you can find the question that you might get in your test? So if you're hoping that you'll be able to like luckily find the question that you get in your test, that's not going to happen. So that's not the approach. Like if you need to get a band 7, you shouldn't be trying to find the question that you might get. You should be finding out how to write a band 7 essay. So I do see it quite a lot where, candidates are hoping that they can find the question and prepare like 100 essays. That's not the way to go. A much, much faster route is to actually learn how do you write an essay. Make sure you can do that. Make sure you can write, if we're talking about task 1 like today, how to analyze it, how to write the paraphrase, how to write the overview, what to put in your details paragraphs. Make sure you have the vocab, make sure you have the grammar. That's what you need to do to get a band 7. I know there's a lot of conflicting info out there, and you've probably heard people say all you need to do is, learn these 10 essays and then you'll be able to get the scores you need. But unfortunately, it's not that easy. Okay, so getting back to my question, how are we going to organize the details paragraphs? How are we going to organize the details paragraphs? Amela, you seem to have written a details paragraph, but we're not ready to do that yet because we haven't decided how we're going to organize them. So basically, there are always going to be 2. We're going to have details paragraph 1, details paragraph 2. But what information are we going to put in the first details paragraph? What information are we going to put in the second details paragraph? Comparing both years, we definitely need to compare both years, but that I'm not clear on what you mean in relation to what goes into paragraph 1, details paragraph 1, and what goes into details paragraph 2. And again, if you're not sure, that's fine. Just put your answer up there. There's no problem making mistakes. The fact that you're here, you're here to find out your mistakes. So just throw up what you think. Okay, Naomi. Body paragraph 1, decreasing trends. Body paragraph 2, increasing and highest. So does that mean that you're going to mention model D 2 times because it decreased and it's the highest? So are you going to mention model D in both paragraphs? Rupinder, body paragraph 1, ABC. Why? Why would you do that? So you don't want to just go and Big B's doing the same thing. So when you're deciding how to organize your paragraphs. You're not just going to go, it's not going to be like this. Do the first one first, do the second one second, do the third one third, do the fourth one fourth, do the fifth one fifth. Like you need to logically organize your data. So what are you using? What are you, in what way are you analyzing the data that makes you think A, B, and C should go on the first one? Hello to you. Welcome to the lesson from Thailand. Very good. Lovely place. Amila, no. If you go 2010 in one and 2015 in the other, you're not really comparing the categories. It's important that you make comparisons. So I would break it down into three categories, three of the car models in one paragraph and two of the car models in the other paragraph. Body paragraph 1, D and C. Body paragraph 2, models A, B, and you meant to say E, I would guess, Quasi, because you already mentioned C. Big B, because 1 is under 50, body 2 over 50. Okay, that's, at least you're thinking about it. I wouldn't particularly go that route myself, but it makes, as long as you're logically considering why you're doing it the way you want to do it, that's good. I would be inclined to go with Quasi, except Quasi wrote C instead of E by accident, by the sounds of things, or by the looks of things. So I would go with this. I would go, let me just change the color of this so it's easier to see. I would go model C and model D in the first body paragraph, in the first details paragraph. And the reason for that is we have more to say about those ones. Because model C was the only one that increased, so that's something unique. We're going to need more words to discuss that. Also consider that model D was the highest in both years, so we're going to need more, it's going to take more words for us to describe that. So yes, and then that will leave us with A, B, and E in the second details paragraph. Simply that there's nothing unique about those. They don't stand out from the others, so it's not going to take us as long to describe them. So putting them together makes sense. Putting the two we have most to say about together and the three we have least to say about together, and make sure that we flesh it out so it's an appropriate length. We're looking for about 50-60 words in each paragraph. Okay, so from there, my next task for you is to write the first details paragraph. We're not going to have time to write the second details paragraph today, but you still have a very clear idea of how to write an essay based on that. So that's what I want from you next. Write the first details paragraph, share that with me in the comments, and I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do this. Good. Yeah, definitely go in ascending order. That's very, very, very logical way to go about it as well, Sad. Yeah. Yeah. So starting with the highest and going down to the lowest within each paragraph. So the same models as I've put on the screen, but then within those paragraphs, start with the one that had the highest and then go down along. Yeah, definitely want to do that. Good. Okay. So obviously in the real IELTS test, you only have 20 minutes to write your full essay. So 5 minutes is a realistic amount of time to give you to write a details paragraph. Depending, of course, how close you are to your test. If your test is soon, it is important that you could do that. If you have a long time and you're just starting your preparation, then, you know, it's not really a concern if you are just getting started. Okay, so let's see your details paragraphs. Even if you're not finished, just share what you have with me and we'll go through them together. Okay, Rupinder. In 2010, 71 calls were received. So not by, so the person who makes the phone call. So if I call you, the call is made by me. So were received in relation to the Model C car at that call center. And this figure rose, you just pass simple, you don't need past perfect here, rose to 84 after 5 years. And when you're using while, it needs to be the same sentence, just a new clause. So comma, while Model D recorded 94. No, so you're using the wrong verb here. Again, Model D accounted for 94 calls during 2010, but decreased by 4 calls in 2015. Okay, so remember the reason that we put Model C and D together is because we had more to say about them. And really, we need to stretch it out. So you need to include everything that you can possibly say about Model C and D, put them into the paragraph. So the fact that Model C was the only one that increased, you want to include that. The fact that Model D was the highest in both years, you want to include that in the paragraph because it's going to be too short. And that will happen. I mean, there are task 1 questions where there's just like, especially a table, you might have 20 data points and you need to condense everything down and say it as briefly as possible. But then there are other occasions where, like this, there aren't that many data points, there isn't that much to say, and you need to stretch it out by including all of this extra information and communicating any extra key features that that you think are noteworthy. So what you've said is fine. There are language mistakes that I pointed out, but it's too short. So you need to include those extra key features here to make sure that your essay isn't too short when you're finished. Model C increasing trend of, so a trend is the overall, so like, you know, if something started low and finished high but had some increases and decreases in the middle, we call that the general trend. But here you just want to say Model C, the number of calls accounted for by the Model C car increased from 84 to 71, increased from 71 to 84. So don't go 2015 to 2010. Always start with the earlier year. So go 2010 to 2015 or whatever chart you're looking at. Starting at the oldest is always going to be the most logical. So always start at the oldest period in the oldest point in the time period and make your way forward. Going the other way around isn't logical, and it's more difficult to follow. And again, like I said to Rupinder, you need to go into much more detail. You need to make sure that answer is a lot longer. Okay, Ranjana. So you need an article at the beginning. The total number of calls in connection with the Model C, yeah, it's actually, you're fine. So the total number of calls in connection with Model C, which stood at 71 in 2010, increased to 84 calls in 2015. Yes, and I like that you've put 71 in 2010, which stood at 71 2010. That's a nice structure. So that's nice for your grammar. But in this case, because there's so little to say, I would actually just include that. Like, I'd write it out in full rather than putting it in a separate clause. So it's a nice structure for your grammar, but your essay is going to be too short. So I wouldn't do it that way for that reason. Recording the highest number of queries for both years was Model D with 94 calls in 2010. And obviously, I didn't get your full answer, I think, because you're on YouTube. Okay, but that looks good. That looks good, Ranjana. Naomi, in 2010, calls received for car model C. So the number of calls received for car model C was at 71 and significantly increased to 84 in 2015. Is that significant? 71 to 84, 13. If you look at the other numbers, I don't think it's that significant. So like, and moderately increased. So then in contrary isn't right. It's on the contrary, and you should start a new sentence would make it easier. On the contrary, car Model D. So the name of the car is Model D. So I wouldn't change the name of the car. So on the contrary, Model D went from 94 calls in 2010, and then it decreased dramatically to 88 by 2015. So you're trying to use adverbs and adjectives, and they are important, but you have to use them accurately. So using the word significantly and using the word dramatically here aren't accurate, and that can also affect your task achievement score. So it's a good idea to use them, but only if you're using them accurately. So be careful with that, Naomi. As we can see, Model C, you don't need another comma after that. Model C started at 71 calls in 2010, increased and then increased by 13 calls, and then put in the year 2015 as well. And then when you have whereas, okay, whereas it was Model D that dominated in 2000, dominated isn't the right word, in 2010 and 2015 with 94 and 88 calls respectively. Not in turn. In turn is different. Sad, the car manufacturer received the highest number of calls for Model D, although its number declined from 94 in 2010 to 88 in the year 2015. Nice. Model C was the only car for which calls increased. Yeah, obviously you're not finished, and I know we both know you're not finished, but okay, you have another bit here. Which calls increased between the 2 years from 71 to 84. Yeah, you've got a really strong grasp of the English language and a really strong grasp of how to write a task one essay. So you're in a good position there, Sad. Kring, you're very welcome. Sir, can I use past perfect tense in writing task one? You can, Rupinder, but you have to understand what context in which to use past perfect. So it's not that you can or can't use past perfect, it's that you have to use it appropriately. So to use it appropriately, you have to, like, if I was talking about 2015 with present simple, I can refer to 2010 with past perfect. So like, if I said, in 2015, Model A received, accounted for 49 of the phone calls received, whereas it had accounted for 52 in 2010. So I put the spotlight, like I put the focus on 2015 by using past simple, and then I can use past perfect to refer back to 2010. But that's not logically organized because I should mention 2010 first and then 2015. So I've shown you how to use it in that the past perfect was accurate in my sentence, but it's not logical to talk about 2015 before 2010. What's this? So I think we saw that one already. Sad, you're very welcome. Very, very welcome. Okay, so that is all we have time for. Obviously, we will also need to write our second details paragraph about models A, B, and E. But, based on what we wrote in what we just did right now, you're aware of how to do that. Emila, there was a modest increase in the number of calls for Model D. This is a really common mistake as well, where students say there's an increase and the name of the category, but it's not an increase in Model A. It's an increase in the number of phone calls that Model A accounted for. So make sure that the subject of your sentence is actually what increased, not the name of the category, because very often that won't be appropriate. From 71 in 2010 to 84 calls in 2015, comma, whereas a slight decrease in calls were observed for Model D from 94 in 2010 to 88 calls in 2015. Yep. But again, like I was saying earlier, you need to flesh it out and make sure that your paragraph will be long enough. So you've included everything you needed to say, but you need to just build up your answer with some extra key features. Okay, that's actually really good. There's actually some really good responses. I think you seem to be coming along well. Timing seems to be a problem for a lot of you, but make sure you can write, before you worry about timing, make sure you can write the standard of answer that you need. So if you need a band 6.5, make sure you can write a band 6.5 level answer and then focus on doing it in 20 minutes. If you need a band 7.5, make sure you can write a band 7.5 level answer and then worry about doing it in 20 minutes. So get your standard, get your quality, the quality of your writing up first, and then worry about the length of time that it takes you. Okay, that's it for today. Got more live streams throughout the week. Got a live stream Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week. Earlier on, I shared the link with you for my, let me just share it again because it's quite far back. But for my live feedback lessons, I have live feedback lessons Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday this week. So you can sign up for those there. There's the link again. Also, I had to change the times of my live streams. So if you're regularly attending my live streams, make sure you go to the top of my Facebook page or the top of my YouTube channel and just check the times. I had to change some of the times, so just be aware that you'll need to check those so that you don't turn up at the normal times based on the previous months. Those have changed, so just check those. Make sure that you have the right time for those. Okay. Ranjana, you're very welcome. And everyone else, take care of yourselves and see you in the next lesson. Okay, bye-bye.